May 1982, a new American soap premiered on BBC One, a show which would become a global smash hit watched by millions all over the world, Dynasty. It would go on to define the 80s with its outrageous storylines, outrageous hair, enormous shoulder pads, enormous earrings, and some of the most legendary rivalries and catfights ever seen on TV. Greed, money, power, gigantic mansions, luxury cars, aliens. You didn't get this on Emmerdale Farm or Coronation Street, not even on Albion Market, and we could not get enough of it. The original Dynasty ended over 30 years ago, but it remains one of my favourite TV shows of all time. So much so, here I am on Radio 2 hosting a special in which we're going to go back to the 80s when Dynasty ruled the world. Welcome to the Dynasty Reunion. Joining me this afternoon, you're going to love this, I have Emma Sams, who played Fallon Carrington, Heather Locklear, who played Sammy Joe Carrington, Linda Evans, Krystle Carrington, Maxwell Caulfield, Miles Colby, Stephanie Beacham, who was Sable Colby, Gordon Thomson, who played Adam Carrington, Jack Coleman, who played Stephen Carrington, John James, also known as Jeff Colby, and arguably the greatest soap star of all time, the legendary Dame Joan Collins, also known as Alexis Carrington. And of course, I want to hear from you. Your memories of Dynasty. Who was your favourite character? Did you ever meet them? Did you ask for a Sammy Joe at the hairdresser? Or did you go for a Krystle blow-dry? Was Dex your pin-up? Or maybe it was Miles. Did you have a Dynasty-themed birthday party? Let me know. Email me, scott.mills@bbc.co.uk, text 88291, standard rate supply, or WhatsApp the show on 08000 288 291. 08000 288 291. You can leave a voice note as well if you want. On socials, use the hashtag Dynasty. And we'll have some big hits from the era of the stars who look like they should have been in Dynasty. First, dripping in diamonds and pearls from 85 is Madonna's Material Girl. Madonna's Material Girl on the Dynasty Reunion. Your messages are coming in already. Good afternoon, Anna in Blackpool. Anna says, the 80s was my era. I loved everything about this show. The hair, the earrings, the hair, the matchy-matchy outfits, the hair, the cheekbones, the absolute absurdity of it all. Happy 40th birthday, Dynasty. Kath's listening, says this was my favourite ever programme growing up. I have them all on DVD. Let's get the party started then, shall we? Beyond excited about this. Dynasty rolled its credits for the final time back in 1991. And there's been a void ever since. So I've invited some of the show's biggest names to join me today for a Dynasty reunion. We're actually doing this. First on the line, the daughter of Blake Carrington and Alexis Carrington. Or was it Alexis Colby? She had amnesia and didn't know whether she was married to... Was it Jeff Colby? Or his half-brother and cousin, Miles Colby? I hope you're following this. Turns out it was both. And then she was abducted by a UFO.
Right, but you never tolerated my working. Just like you never tolerated what happened to me in the desert.
Please, we're not going to have this UFO discussion again, are we?
Who will ever forget how you helped me through that one? I needed you to believe in me. But where were you? Not on my side.
On the line now, Fallon Carrington, also known as Fallon Colby, also known as Randall Adams when she didn't know who she was or who she was married to. Hello, Emma Sams.
That's the best intro ever.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good. I think it's fair to say Fallon had a tough time with identity, especially as you were the second actress to play her.
Yes, she must have been very confused by that.
So Pamela Sue Martin was the first person to play the role.
Yes.
And then how did it come about for you to be part of it?
Well, Pamela Sue Martin left of her own accord. I guess they started looking for a replacement because it was such an important character in the show. I had a very weird introduction to it, which was that Aaron Spelling's daughter, Tori Spelling, was a fan of the other television program that I was on at the time, a General Hospital, it was called. So she nudged her dad and said, oh, there's one of the actresses on General Hospital is really good. You should meet her. So I got called in to have a general meeting. And they looked at me closely and went, ooh, you could be Fallon. And that's how I got the job.
So Tori Spelling was responsible for you being Fallon?
Yes. Thanks, Tori. Thank you.
Take me back to the 80s. You're starring in the biggest soap opera in the world about ridiculously wealthy people doing all kinds of spiteful and highly entertaining things to each other. What was it like behind the scenes? Did any of you actually like each other?
Yes, absolutely. We actually got on really well, which is such a disappointment for everyone to hear, because they were really hoping that there was a lot of, unpleasantness behind the scenes. And actually there wasn't. It was a very nice atmosphere. We laughed a lot, as you can imagine, especially in the rehearsals. And it wasn't as glamorous as you would think, because actually, wearing really fancy clothes for many, many hours, having to be at work at 5:30 in the morning, all of those things make it feel like a job.
So when you had to do the really unpleasant scenes, was there a lot of laughter around those before they said action?
Oh, most definitely. That was the way that you could deal with it, really. Is if this is your work colleague and you had to slap them, if you didn't laugh about it before and after, it could take a turn for the worse.
Did you ever read the script and think to yourself, Fallon is going to do what?
Quite a few times, actually.
Talk me through those.
The now infamous mud fight with Heather Locklear. Obviously, women cat fights, as they called them, was quite a big part of Dynasty, and it was inevitable that I'd get mine, and I took it as a compliment that I was getting mine. But why did mine have to be in mud? And also why with Heather? Because Heather, even though she was a tiny little thing, still is, she's really strong. So if they hadn't written that it was a truce, she would have won by a million miles. And at one point she had to push my face into the mud, and the mud went up to the top of both of my nostrils. I mean, that's not acting. That's real mud, real nostrils. And then, of course, the other time that I read the script and went, what? Was on the spin-off of Colby's, and the cliffhanger episode of the whole season. It said Fallon gets taken away in a UFO.
We'll come back to that later, but go on.
Okay. No, I just assumed that it was a fake last script because they didn't want to let the public or it to leak out.
Yeah. Because
there was a lot of secrecy about it all. Then they said, no, that's the real one. Then I thought, well, actually, I'm the star of it. It's all about me. Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. So with the cat fight, was that all you, or were there some stunt doubles? There
were some stunt doubles, but mine I had a slight problem with because she... and they used the shots of them from behind, obviously, because then they can't see the face. But she had quite a large backside. And I was a bit perturbed by that because I thought if those are the moments where they're cutting to her, and of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't my backside and it wasn't the size of my backside. So.
And do you remember watching and going, that's not my backside?
Yes. If I watched it now, I would say that's not my backside.
All of the cast were such massive stars, and they were all featured in the tabloids here and also in all the gossip magazines worldwide. There must have been some ridiculous rumours.
Oh, there were lots of. You have to ask John James about that because he had probably the worst of those tabloid rumours going around about him. There were a few. I was supposedly engaged to Eddie Murphy at one point. which was interesting. I only met him once. Certainly didn't feel inclined to get engaged to him. Let's put it that way. So yeah, that was quite a shock to read about.
Well, we've just mentioned John James, who played one of your husbands, Jeff Colby. We'll reunite you with him after this. I'm playing 80s hits by artists who look like they could have been in Dynasty. So here's Duran Duran, Girls on Film. All 80s music from people that easily could have been in it with that hair. The Dynasty reunion with Scott Mills on Radio 2. Text us on 88291. WhatsApp 08000 288 291. Anand in Crowthorne, Berkshire says, I used to live for this show. I was in my teens, and when it was on, we always spoke about it at school and often debated whether it was better than Dallas. I always thought it was. My favourite character was Dominique Devereaux. She had such sass. Justin says, as a young gay teenager in the 80s in a very rural area and not out, this show opened my world to the glamour of a normal life and made me realise that I was normal. And the wealth made its rivals Dallas seem like the poor cousins. More reunion next.
The Dynasty Reunion with Scott Mills. BBC Radio 2.
You are listening to the Dynasty Reunion with Scott Mills here on BBC Radio 2. I have Emma Sams, Fallon, with me. Now, let's reunite her with her husband. Well, one of them. Here they are in action.
I mean, the ink on our divorce papers is hardly dry, and you're already dragging out your next wife.
She has a name, you know. And by the way, she mentioned me.
How hurt she was.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, dear. I might just have to sit down and write a letter to the poor girl, apologizing for my insensitivity.
Maybe you should.
Maybe you should apologize to me.
It's Jeff Colby. Hello, John James.
Hello, Scott.
Tell me about these rumours that you had floating around.
Oh, my goodness. I was Stephanie with Monte Carlo, Princess Stephanie. I was engaged. Well, much like my character on the show, I was sort of the utility bachelor, and every eligible starlet or celebrity or royalty I was somehow engaged or going out with on a weekly basis.
Now, John, you were in the very first episode back in 1981, which was shown here in the UK in 82. Did you have any idea that this show was going to be globally huge?
Before the one that aired, I actually did the one that never aired, which was when it was starring George Peppard as Blake. That was shot, and they obviously replaced George for whatever the reason, and with John Forsythe. So, yes, I essentially did the entire franchise of almost 220-something shows. I think I realized it when the character of Jeff and the character of Fallon started to click. And at that point, I felt that the show really was starting to move, and it was dynamic. And also, of course, when Joan Collins joined the show, that gave it an element of European. And I think what else is also important to note about Dynasty broke a lot of glass ceilings. We're talking 35, 40 years ago. Oh, God help me. But the first gay character on television. You know, the fact that Joan Collins came in as a powerful woman in business who could go toe-to-toe with Blake Carrington and push him around. Diane Carroll, who came in as a powerful Black woman who could go toe-to-toe with Alexis. So the show gave representation to a lot of people that didn't have that in television before.
Yeah. John, you were involved in some pretty outrageous storylines. There were several engagements, kidnap, a wife with amnesia who may have married your half-brother. There were some mines full of Nazi treasure, a brother-in-law, Adam Carrington, who planned to kill you by decorating your office with toxic paint. What were your favourites?
Well, certainly, when one is poisoned with toxic paint, you frankly don't, forget that. I think that was probably my most, that was the most outrageous and my favorite.
Yourself and Emma here shared a lot of time on screen. How did you pass the time on set? Because obviously there would be a lot of waiting around in between takes.
We did crossword puzzles. Do you remember that? JJ, do you remember we used to sit and do the LA Times crossword puzzle?
No, I traded stocks, remember?
Oh, yes, there was that too, yes.
The original Dynasty and spin-off, the Colbys, still both have huge, devoted followings worldwide. What's the thing fans always ask you or that they remind you of, John James?
I think one of them is Aliens, certainly, from the Colbys.
Yeah, you had paint. I had Aliens.
You know what's funny, Scott? I remember Midnight Don Medford, we called him. Midnight Don Medford, one of our rotating directors, sitting on his director's chair out in the desert that night, filming The Alien, thumbing through the script, and he looked up at me and said, "Damn it, I wish I'd read this script before I said I'd do it." I'd say there were two things for me. That was the Moldavian Aftermath, where we all walked out perfectly coiffed.
Yeah.
And The Aliens would be the two most outlandish pieces we did on the show.
We're going to reunite some more stars from Dynasty in just a moment on Radio 2. We'll take a break for some music. Yeah, Radio 2. Scott Mills here on Radio 2 and BBC Sounds. Let's bring someone else into the Dynasty reunion. Fallon was married to Jeff, but also, sort of, I think, married to his half-brother, who was also his cousin, Miles Colby. Remember this love triangle?
I thought you decided not to come, Jeff.
I changed my mind. Does that bother you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it does.
Miles, I really appreciate the fact that you helped save my life. But that doesn't mean that I have to spend the rest of it doing what pleases you.
Well, why don't we ask Fallon if she's pleased seeing you here? Are you, Fallon?
Look, my father and Krystle asked both of you to be here, so let's just leave it at that, okay?
No, let's not.
Well, this time, I've asked him to be here, with Fallon and Jeff. Known also for appearing in huge hit TV shows including Murder, She Wrote, Beverly Hills 90210, Casualty, Emmerdale, and films including Empire Records and Grease 2 with Michelle Pfeiffer. Hello, Maxwell Caulfield.
Hey, Scott. Great to be with you. Great to see John and Emma.
So, Maxwell, if you can set the record straight for me, who was actually married to Fallon for real, you or Jeff?
Well, she lost her memory. I mean, and consequently, she was not at fault. Although, of course, I played a bigamist on Emmerdale. So, no, naturally, John and I, Jeff Colby and I, both thought we were her legally wed husband, and that's the source of the friction that raged between us for two solid seasons. Even after I think the law courts had settled it, and I remarried some leggy dancer chick, and it was certainly a rum time. Let's put it that way. And John I think John was always going to get the gal. Frankly,
Maxwell, do people still ask you about Grease 2?
Oh, that's all they ask me about. It's really refreshing to be here talking about the Colbys and Dynasty, frankly.
What do people say to you about being in that movie?
Oh, it just, the impact it had on them, a formative point in their lives. And obviously it was, in fact, I do believe Paramount are about to launch a new show called The Rise of the Pink Ladies. So Grease continues. I'm hoping to be called back maybe as the school principal or at least the old toothless dude running the bowling alley. I don't know.
Maxwell, you were one of several Brits on the show along with Dame Joan Collins, Stephanie Beacham and Emma Sams here with us now. Did you ever get together and, I don't know, talk about Coronation Street or what was going on in the UK in what must have seemed like just such a different world?
We didn't go to the local bar and ask for British pints or anything or have tea over at Joan's in Bel Air. But I think there was that sort of unspoken camaraderie actors always feel, particularly when they're lucky to be in an exotic part of the world, all working. For Emma and I, the biggest thing was to retain credible American accents.
Yep. And
Joan and Stephanie didn't need to. They were both very, very imperious English women who begat these, dare I say it, attractive children. And we were all at our peak back then. It was it was a very glamorous time. It was a very heady time. It was the peak of Reaganomics, so it was a really people were living large, and we were getting to play the sort of the pinnacle of that lifestyle. And as I say, we were in our mid-20s and at our cutest. So and the women look great. I mean, the mature characters on the show all look fabulous. Joan still decries the fact that she felt, as brilliant as the chemistry was between her and Gordon Thomson as Adam, that, she couldn't believe he was, that he'd been cast because she felt he was too old for the part, you know. And she'd never have a son who was that old. But actually, they both looked so great together, and their interaction was so fantastic.
Maxwell, you and Jeff, it's fair to say, didn't get along, but you did, after all, marry the same woman. Have you all since made up?
Oh, yes.
More than John cast me in a movie he was producing just last year. He did kill me in the course of the film, but so we're definitely pals. And obviously we've got great taste. We're looking, actually, with each passing year, we seem to be looking more and more like brothers. And Emma just seems to be getting more and more beautiful. So we...
Absolutely. I feel closer now. And Emma, of course, you know, you're over in Europe and we can't see you. And I saw Max on Monday and I hugged him and started crying, I think, didn't I, Max?
You're a very emotional cat.
I cry at card tricks, but yeah, we got along so well. And it's that I like to tell people that we were all like in the little boat and we were all, you know, rowing away, working together. And we created something that we're still talking about these many years. So we did something right.
Absolutely.
And now,
Emma, have you forgiven these two?
Forgiven them? Are you kidding? It was the best storyline ever, having them fighting over me. My goodness.
Okay, I've reunited Fallon, Jeff, and Miles. I'm going to invite Nesta is loving this show this afternoon. Her auntie spent a lot of time in the 80s dressed as a Joan Collins lookalike and has loads and loads of collections of newspapers she was in, and she was on the regional news. Rob in Bedfordshire says, at the age of 10, my mum threatened to stop me watching Dynasty as I would speak to her as Alexis. She would ask me to tidy my bedroom and I would reply, damn you, I'm going to destroy you. Let's get back to the reunion. So far, I have Emma Sams, Fallon, with me, John James, or Jeff Colby, with me, Maxwell Caulfield, who played Miles Colby. Let's make room for another. Joining the party now, she has starred in some of the most successful TV shows of the last 40 years, including TJ Hooker, Melrose Place, and Spin City. In Dynasty, she played Sammy Jo Carrington, niece of Krystle, wife of Stephen, daughter-in-law of Alexis. She was involved in a love triangle. They loved a love triangle on Dynasty with Jeff and Fallon, which led to moments like this.
Ooh, champagne. Have I interrupted a celebration? Or does this go on every morning?
Jeff and I are going to be married.
Congratulations. Out of one and into another. Marriage, of course. Sammy Jo, welcome to what I'm sure is going to be a long line of Mrs. Colbys.
For a woman who's just lost her husband, I'm glad you're taking it so well.
Well, Jeff and I will always be close.
Fallon, you're really pushing it.
It's Sammy Jo Carrington. Hello, Heather Locklear.
Hello, Scott. Wow. That is a lot of relatives.
I know. So you first appeared in the second series and married Stephen. It's fair to say
yes.
the Carringtons, most notably Alexis, weren't very happy about this. Was Sammy Jo a gold digger?
No, I don't think so. I just think she was not real bright and just went wherever life led her.
Why did Alexis dislike Sammy Jo so much?
You know what? Wait, is Stephen's her son? Or is Stephen, look, I don't even remember this.
Stephen was Joan's son.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Alexis, yeah.
Then I didn't think she liked me, anybody probably being with her son, but I'm sure I wasn't good enough for him. That's what she thought. And she might have thought I was a gold digger, but you know, that was that.
At one point, you even blackmailed Alexis. You dared to take her on.
Oh my God, you're bringing me. I mean, I think as I got older, as Sammy Jo got older, she wasn't gonna be a doormat, so she stood up to her, and yeah, I guess she's playing Joan's or Alexis's game.
Now, Sammy Jo and Jeff got very friendly later in the series. At the time,
I think for a second.
Yeah, Fallon was a little bit upset, and in true Dynasty style, me and Emma have already discussed it. You both had a scrap in the mud. Heather, what are your memories of that day?
Oh my God, I think I thought it was very funny. And just that they're like, put more mud on each other, slap someone like that. You know, at the beginning we had figured out what we're going to do, choreographed. And then once you're in the mud, what are you going to do? Yeah. So they were just, do this, do that. And we were muddy mess.
You were too strong. You kept pushing my face in the mud.
That's so mean. I'm so sorry. I know they told me that. I didn't do it on my own.
Of course.
But I'm so sorry, Emma. How will I ever repay?
We did laugh about it. It's true.
What is your favorite memory of appearing on the show? A favorite scene, a favorite memory from backstage, anything?
I think I loved the banister when I first got on, where I slid down the banister and ran into, I believe, I thought it was Joan, but it might have been someone else. But I went down the banister and it was super fun and silly. Like, who would ever do that? But I thought it was fun.
We were just talking to some of the other cast, including Emma earlier, about sometimes you would get the script and go, really? Did that happen to you?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure plenty of times. I think probably when John's character and my character, where I was kind of liking him, I'm like, really? Do we just keep it all in the family? What's going on? I was like, how can this? I don't think we ever had a scene together before. Suddenly, I'm like, whoa, you're pretty cute. So yeah. But anytime we'd see a fight, we'd go, oh, that's going to be an all day. My story, they were just, Sammy Joe was just out there anyway. So nothing really surprised me.
So when you saw that there was a fight scene coming up, you thought that's going to be a long day.
Yes. Yeah. Or a freezing. I know I had another fight with Catherine Oxenberg on the rooftop of some hotel. It was very cold and it took a while. And then I think we had to get not our heads wet, but our bodies wet a couple of times, and then do the one where we get our hair wet and hopefully have to not do it again. So, and freezing cold.
Did you have to do it again?
Oh, yeah, sure. Not that we didn't have to get our hair dried and stuff again, but we had to do other things when we were already wet.
Obviously on screen it was nothing but glamour, but Heather, give me an insight into what it was like on the lot. Like, what was it like behind the scenes?
I think behind the scenes always seemed really calm and everyone was so wonderful. To me, there was no shenanigans. I don't know if there were, but I mean, in any kind of way. But it was just really calm, and the actors I worked with, the older ones, were just really encouraging. And to me, it was always nice. It was when we go to those parties and there'd be Candy and Aaron, and I'd go, oh my God, I don't even know that guy, but this is a glamorous life they live.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun, interesting.
Obviously, the people in the show were very rich. So I want to ask you, what was the catering like backstage?
I don't remember. What, Emma?
Roach coach, wasn't it?
It was what?
I think so. Yes, because we had to go across the street to the Roachy place, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not fancy, Scott, is the answer.
Hang on a minute. So you're telling me that when you were the biggest stars in the world on the biggest TV show in the world, you had to go across the street in Los Angeles to get your lunch?
It's very humbling, yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me for this Bank Holiday Monday here on BBC Radio 2.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Lots of love to you, Heather.
Thank you. Love back.
Emma Sams, or Fallon, I need you to stay with me because I have a surprise reunion for you coming right up.
Oh, yeah.
More music from the 80s by people who look like they could have been in Dynasty. Big hair, big shoulder pads, all the bling. It's the Pointer Sisters. Big hair 80s anthems on the Dynasty reunion. Pointer Sisters and Jump. Harriet in Whitstable says, hey Scott, I am loving all my Dynasty memories. It's all coming flooding back. Thank you. I still fantasize about owning an apartment with a lift door that opens straight into my hallway, just like Dexter's. Don't we all? Alex in Dumfries and Galloway says, I was living in Copenhagen when Dynasty was on. We used to watch it on Swedish TV, and back then they called it dollars. It used to be a highlight on our weekly TV viewing. Can't believe I'm admitting this. We're all here together. We're all in this. We love the shoulder pads, the high hair, even the cat fights. Very fond memories indeed. You're listening to the Dynasty Reunion with me, Scott Mills, on BBC Radio 2. Now, you would have heard me speaking to Emma Sams, who played Fallon on the show. She's still with me because I have something very special lined up. Firstly, Emma, that final episode of the Dynasty spin-off, The Colbys, can you remind me what happened again?
So Fallon is driving in her car and suddenly the power sort of goes out and then she sees flickering lights and then she strangely becomes mesmerized and steps out of the car and looks up into the sky, and there is a UFO which lands in front of her. And the rear sort of ramp comes down slowly with smoke and all sorts of things. And inside is the sort of silhouette of an alien. And then she, completely mesmerized, walks up into the UFO, and then they fly off away together.
One of the most iconic television moments of all time, in my humble opinion. That actually happened. You were abducted by a UFO, and
Correct.
And it did have an alien inside it.
There was an alien, yes.
All right. Here's a fun surprise. Today is all about reunions. So on the line right now, yes, that's right, I have the alien, also known as Ned Davis. Hello, Ned.
Hello, Scott. Hello, Emma. Nice to see you all.
So,
without any smoke in my head.
Now, Ned, you've got to tell me, how did you win the part of the alien?
I'm not really sure. I guess I just fit in, and they didn't have anybody else to choose from, and it was kind of a quiet exit on this show. They were kind of keeping it all under wraps, what was really happening.
They couldn't put out a casting call for the role of an alien on the Gold.
Yeah. So I was available, and apparently they had an outfit that Leonard Nimoy had used in a previous Star Trek movie. It was this metal silver suit. So I put on this outfit, and it's 36 degrees outside. We're in the desert. It's, nighttime shooting, and, it was probably a Friday night well into a Saturday morning when we were doing it. And then we were standing in this, it was really a 50-foot trailer for a semi-truck that had a lift gate on it. And inside, they were filling it full of steam. So when it comes down, this thing's flowing up. And then Emma comes walking up this thing, and it's like, don't laugh. Don't laugh.
Because
whatever you do, don't laugh.
We knew each other. This was the problem. But Ned was the guy on the crew who would come and knock on the door of the dressing room and say, we need you on set now, and make sure I got to the set. And then so we knew each other. We worked together. So I was not used to acting, serious and
And I certainly wasn't an actor, man. That's much way above my pay grade. I could not do that. So it was like, I don't know, how are we going to do this? Because this is my friend that I'm doing this, and we're playing this silly game here.
But we had to look I had to be mesmerized by him.
You look great.
There's a lot to unpack. You're in the middle of the desert, I'm guessing outside of Los Angeles. It's 36 degrees. Ned, you're part of the crew. You're not one of the actors, but the reason you've got the part of the alien is so that no one finds out, because it has to be a top secret storyline. You're wearing one of Leonard Nimoy's outfits from Star Trek.
Yeah.
And Emma, you're gazing longingly at the alien, and you're appearing from some kind of a truck with smoke coming out of it, Ned.
Yeah.
Emma, when you were shooting that scene, did it look anything at all like a spaceship?
No, it looked like the back of a truck.
Yes.
Because it was. As a young viewer, this was pre-internet. There were no spoilers, but it does remain one of the most mesmerizing, shocking, and baffling TV moments of my life. You must have got that script. Right, you must have got that script and been like, what?
Yes, it was. As I said, I thought it was a fake script to put people off the track of the real script that we were going to get last minute. And then, no, that was it. That was it. So I invested fully in it.
Ned, tell me about life after the episode. Did you go on to playing other non-human characters?
No, not really.
No.
Not
acting. I was an assistant director. And I've been 15 years on city council in my little town, and been mayor 3 times. Are you the mayor? I've been mayor 3 times, and I'm scheduled to be mayor in not next year, the year after again.
The mayor of where?
So Westlake Village, California, which is about 40 miles from north of LA and about 50 miles south of Santa Barbara.
I've driven past there.
I'm sure you have.
I'm going to come to LA and I'm going to stop and I want to say hello to Ned the Mayor alien.
You come over to you stay at my house.
What? This is amazing. This is the best day of my life. Ned, thank you so much for joining us. Ned Davis. And I'm now going to play this song for Fallon and for her alien abductor. This is Starship. Nothing's gonna stop us now.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Emma.
Ah, this is so much fun. Elaine Byrne says, your Dynasty reunion has made my day, Scott. My 80s childhood consisted of watching Dynasty and planning what I was going to wear when I grew up to be a powerful businesswoman. I'm still waiting. So we just reunited Emma Samms, Fallon, with her alien abductor. More reunion coming up. Stephanie Beacham, Jack Coleman, Gordon Thomson, Linda Evans and Joan Collins. Jeff Colby, Emma Samms, who played Fallon Colby Carrington, and her alien abductor, also known as Ned. It's a bit like a party in here. Some people have gone, some are still here. We still have Emma Samms and John James on the line. Now, another guest, and this time it's a real TV legend. Star of another iconic 80s TV show, Connie. She's also appeared in Coronation Street as Ken Barlow's love interest, Martha, in Bad Girls, Blossom, Beverly Hills 90210, Trolleyed, and Celebrity Big Brother alongside Ivana Trump. In 1985, Dynasty spin-off The Colbys launched. Enter Alexis's cousin, Sable Colby.
Oh dear, it's not sinking in, is it? I have just bought your ships at auction, Alexis. What? For 10 cents on the dollar. I don't believe it. You once asked me what I wanted from you, and I said everything you've got. Let's consider this the second installment, Alexis.
Played by the legendary Stephanie Beacham, who is with me now. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, everybody. How lovely.
Hi, Stephanie.
So you were in the Colbys with both Emma and John, who are both with us now. Did you guys hang around on set, or was it just literally work?
Did we hang around on set? We didn't much. It was quite efficient, and we seemed to be having to do lots of hair and makeup, and a major tragedy on that set was if you broke a nail and then you had to go dashing off and have it mended. It was quite a visually important setup. I do remember that the hair did take an awful long time. Mind you, it's never looked as good since. So, God bless them all.
I imagine there was so much hairspray.
Yes, I think probably a can of Elnet a day.
Sable would then go on to become enemies with her cousin, Alexis. It was something to do with oil tankers, and the two of you fought for the attention of Dexter. Sable was brave, wasn't she?
She was brazen, I would say. She made terrible moves on that boy. And, Dex really was Alexis's property, if you like, and I'm sure that Alexis would have regarded it. But I'd had such a hard time with my sister and my husband that I think that probably my morals had gone a little astray.
Yeah. Yeah. You know the real bitchy scenes. Did you enjoy them?
I don't know what you're talking about. Do you mean my acting?
Did you relish doing those kind of that kind of scene?
Yeah, completely and utterly. I love comedy and I love timing. And what's harsh about having to really wrap your tongue around something and make it effective?
In season 9, John James, you had to hold Sable back. She was in a very bright orange suit, but unsuccessfully, sadly. And both Alexis and Sable rolled around over a sofa, and then on a coffee table, and then all over the floor, slapping each other. John James, you remember that?
How could I forget?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
I think it was shocking pink I was wearing, actually. I'm sure it wasn't.
Shocking pink.
Yes, of course. That was our last show. Stephanie, hello, my darling.
Hello.
And we had a lot of fun on set, Scott, too. I mean, that's one thing. Between scenes, we were always very light. We were under a great deal of pressure, of course, especially with a new show like the Colbys.
Yeah.
But I think the set was very light. And we worked very hard. Yeah. But generally, we had fun, and we made sure that we laughed.
I've never understood whether you took any of it seriously at all, but your concentration was good, and then you assured me it was just you were thinking about fishing, which I love.
Oh, God, you're right. I forgot about that. Stephanie said, no. Stephanie said, John, I saw the last episode. Your look was they were coming down the stairs. It was brilliant. I mean, your look, it was just so marvelous. What were you doing? And I said, I was thinking about fishing.
It was more specific than that. It was deep sea fishing, John.
Thank you. Well, that's why the look was so specific.
Heaven.
Stephanie, is there one particular scene that really stands out that you remember and that you loved doing?
Mainly they're from the Colbys, because I loved every single scene with my husband, Chuck Heston. We weren't doing a soap. We weren't doing anything apart from our particular variety of troubled married life. So adorable, those scenes. He was a heavenly actor to play with, and he was so giving and caring and special. So those were, but obviously there's nothing more fun than coming out of an elevator with Alexis Carrington and, spitting bitchy lines. So there were several varieties of heaven.
I must also mention, Stephanie, you recently popped up on a TV special to mark the 90th birthday of William Roach, Ken Barlow on Coronation Street. Quite a change, from Dynasty to Coronation Street. Not many similarities.
Not many similarities, except the shoes are more comfortable on something like Coronation Street because I was wearing, furry boots. And Sable Colby seemed to wear 7-inch heels. I think if I was rich, I'd wear a lot of jewels and slippers. But anyway.
Emma, did you and Stephanie have scenes together? Were you friends or enemies?
Oh, she was horrible to me. She was beastly to me. Character-wise, of course. So yes, we certainly did have scenes together, and I had to be, on my toes for them for sure.
I mean, for heaven's sake, she was thinking of marrying my son. My son was not going to marry someone who was already married to Jeff Colby, even though she had forgotten it. It was, I mean, it has to be understood. Draw the line somewhere.
Stephanie, you're a legend, and thank you so much for being on.
Oh, it was lovely to see and to join everybody, and I send much love to you all.
Legendary Stephanie Beacham. More Dynasty Reunion coming right up on Radio 2.
The Dynasty Reunion with Scott Mills. BBC Radio
2. All right. I think it's time we had another guest join us for the Dynasty Reunion. Next up, he was the son of Blake and Alexis, husband to Sammy Joe, brother to Fallon, heir to the Carrington Empire, but did he want it?
You can speak plainer than that, Dad. You don't want Danny to have a gay for a father. Well, don't worry, because your grandson will be able to choose for himself who and what he wants to be when he grows up.
Yes? With you as an example?
Blake! No, Krystle, don't. Don't get him to apologize to me. Don't get him to say, I'm sorry, son, I didn't mean it, because he did.
Hello, Stephen Carrington, better known as Jack Coleman.
Hello, everybody.
You already have some family here, so say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So you were actually the second person to play the character of Stephen. Can you remember how they wrote the change of appearance into the show?
Well, the classic old South China Sea oil rig explosion reconstructive surgery.
It's a classic. He needed plastic surgery, so he got an entirely new face and, as it happens, a new body.
It's true. I don't know why they won't do that for me now. They did it when I didn't need it, and they won't do it when I do need it.
So you and Jeff, or John James in real life, who's still here, you got to wear some pretty amazing designer clothes. Was there any jealousy between you over who got the best wardrobe?
They had me in nice stuff. Every once in a while, I'd be in like a canary yellow sweater, which was a little jarring. But other than that, I never had any complaints or jealousies about wardrobe. It was.
Well, come on, Jack. I was jealous of your Adidas short shorts.
Those short shorts were, yes.
And I think you were jealous of my riding pants.
You looked better in those riding. Also, Stephen in riding. It just would have been.
I used to wonder. I said, "Why am I walking around in riding pants in the middle of the mansion at 1:00 in the afternoon?"
Yeah.
Well, you were either coming from polo or on your way to polo. I would assume.
A lot of polo.
Yeah, a lot of polo going on.
We mentioned this already with John James. Stephen Carrington is generally acknowledged as the first openly gay character in a primetime drama series. That must have been a huge deal back then.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, it was the first dramatic portrayal of a series regular of a gay man. Now, some of our audience was disappointed because there was a lot of, you know, is he with Luke? Is he with Sammy Joe? Is he with Claudia? You know, what's going on there? So there was a lot of waffling, but it was very important for so many gay people to see a gay character on television and say, okay, well, we're not just hidden anymore, and it set a precedent, and which has been built on. Year after year in different shows.
Did the show get complaints because of it?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, they got a lot of complaints, a lot of, family council type. I think it was very, very daring in the South. Rock Hudson told me he came back from being in Hawaii, and he was at a hotel in the bar, and Dynasty was on, and I was in some scene, and some guys were going off about how awful it was that there was a gay character, and he lit into them and sort of set them straight. And it must have been kind of shocking for them to suddenly have Rock Hudson giving them a lecture. But we forget because of all the glitz and the glamour and everything. And they with my character, with Diane Carroll being the first Black woman of real power on a primetime television show. There was a lot of precedent setting moments and storylines.
Do you remember any nights out with the cast after a long day on set?
Well, if they were really good, I wouldn't remember them. But I do know that yes, we had a. I remember being at Tramp with Joan, and Prince was there, and Kiss comes on, and the line, "You don't have to watch Dynasty to have an attitude." And I looked over, and he looked at me, and he winked, and I thought, that's pretty cool.
That's so cool.
It was very meta, which we didn't know back then, but we would all say now. So it all went on. Whatever you think went on, it did.
Jack Coleman or Stephen Carrington, stay with me. You just mentioned the song Kiss by Prince, which includes the line about Dynasty. Let's play it. Prince being in the club is, I think, the best story so far. The Dynasty reunion with Scott Mills on BBC Radio 2. I hope you're enjoying. Joanne says, my party trick as a kid was to name everyone in the Dynasty opening credits before they appeared. All my Barbie dolls were named after my favourite characters. Thank you so much, says Tim in St Albans, for bringing back so many memories from my childhood. Your show just reminds me of spending weekend evenings sitting with my late nan in pool, making her watch Dynasty because I loved it. I'm sat here painting this afternoon with a smile and some tears, remembering the 80s, a great programme, and my lovely nan. You can still message us, 88291. Sophie says, I love this reunion so much. Stay there, Sophie. Still to come, Krystle and Alexis. There's somebody at the door. And it's the villainous brother of Stephen and Fallon, the other son of Blake and Alexis. Here he is in a heated moment. He had lots of those with his dad, Blake.
You scratched and clawed your way to the top of the heap. And if it suited your purpose, you lied and you stole and you cheated. What the hell do you mean? If you're so pure, why are you so concerned because some two-bit cop is nosing around your past? Get out of it. The minute the body gets mentioned, you look as guilty as hell. You no good. And you!
Don't!
What are you if not a fraud?
Stop it! Adam! Oh my God. Adam!
All the way down the stairs and into the Dynasty reunion, it's Adam Carrington, better known as Gordon Thomson. Hi, Gordon.
Hello!
Your brother, Stephen, and sister Fallon are here. Say hi.
Hello. How are you, Emma? It's so good to see you. Jack, fair. We spent
I know, we've had enough of each other.
Together.
Gordon, would it be fair to say Adam was a nasty piece of work?
No, not at all. He was a little angry. He was a little complex. He was abandoned, and that made him very angry. He wasn't evil. He was just misunderstood and a little vengeful. That's what I would say. That's all.
John James, let me bring you back in. You must remember the enormous fight with Stephanie Beacham and Joan Collins making a mess of one room, and then you dragged Gordon by his feet down a flight of stairs.
Jeff, be careful!
Get your hands off me! What's those lines? I don't know what you're talking about! You don't! Get off! You're trying to make us look as dirty as you are!
When you watch it doesn't look like stunt doubles.
That's why I hobble. Both Gordon and I are hobbling around today, Scott. We love doing stunts. It was fun. It was physical acting. One of my favorite scenes with Gordon. We were on the 10th floor of a building under construction. They had not put the walls in, and the director asked Gordon and I to start the fight, and then you're to push Gordon off the building.
Oh, wow.
I said, what? What do you mean push him off the building? He said, don't worry about it. We're going to put a cable around your waist, and you're going to be tied to one of the girders, and you won't. If you go over, you won't go that. I said, what? So we start doing this, and they're hanging a camera above us, and Gordon's on his back, and I'm on top of Gordon. And
Health and safety in the 80s, not a thing.
Oh, yeah. This is, anything goes in the 80s.
Yeah, fine.
And I'm pushing him. And I'm pushing him off the building, and Gordon's saying, no. And the director says, more. I want more. I thought to myself, are you kidding? I'm afraid of heights. I'm looking down at these little tiny cars on the road on Hollywood Boulevard, and Gordon's looking up at the camera. And literally, we got up to our waist. That's how far out, almost. And they said, cut. And I pulled Gordon back. And that still is one of my favorite moments and scenes that I've ever done as an actor, ever doing stunts, was with Gordo. And we did a lot of fights. And they were fun.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Gordon, tell me your favorite scene to film.
Oh, that's a toughie. First of all, I loved the whole paint storyline. I really did, because it was how outre was that? I mean, JJ had a lot of wonderful acting to do to respond to this. How do you respond to poisonous paint fumes? Well, JJ can tell you. I couldn't. I loved that. And I also loved the very first scene I ever shot, where I discovered that my real name was Adam Carrington. That to this day haunts me because it was so powerful.
All right, Gordon, don't go anywhere. Somebody else is about to join us. But let's have some more music. All hits from the 80s, from artists who looked like they could have been in Dynasty. They had the big hair, bigger shoulder pads, and they too were a family, only a real one. It's 5 Star with Systematics. What a pop song, 5 Star, Systematics. This is the Dynasty Reunion with Scott Mills on Radio 2. Hello, Stephen in beautiful rural Halifax, who says, I'm waiting to go out to the pub. I've delayed it. I know I can listen back on BBC Sounds, but I don't want to miss a thing. Watching Dynasty with my parents and my sister was a must back then. And your show today has transported me back to the 80s, me lying down on the floor, propped up with pillows, absolutely loving all the cat fights. This has made my bank holiday. Amanda Thomson on Twitter says, loving the reunion. I'm wearing 2 pairs of shoulder pads just to celebrate. The guests are incredible. Can't wait for Joan. I think it's time now to bring someone else into the Dynasty reunion. I am beyond excited to say this. She starred in the very first episode and stayed with it right to the end. A television legend.
I know how you are. Blake told me about your would-be seduction. But how could you possibly think he could ever be interested in you again?
Maybe all I really need is just a little more time.
I'm not finished.
This time out of the mud, hello, Krystle Carrington, also known as Linda Evans.
Hello. Lovely to be with you today. What great stories they're all telling. Love this.
It's been a real treat, yes, you're right, hearing all these stories about a show which has been such a huge part of people's lives, and millions and millions of people around the world to this day remember it. How does that feel for you, Linda?
Well, it feels beautiful. You always do a show and hope that it will be successful, hope that people will like it. And I think every year we were just more and more surprised at how much of an audience we had and how it grew so quickly.
Krystle was such a loving, kind, gentle character, but when she needed to, she could pack a punch, couldn't she?
Yes. Yeah, they made sure that those scenes were in. And I rather loved it myself.
Your fights with Joan Collins as Alexis are amongst the most iconic TV moments of all time. There were scraps in mud, in a pond, on sofas, staircases. They must have been fun to do. There must have been a lot of laughing around the scenes.
Well, there was a lot of laughing for me because I love stunts. To me, it was just a joy when I would get the script and I said, oh, good, we're going to do this. Joan, on the other hand, didn't like it at all. However, she was really great at verbally fighting. I wasn't as great at that, and I loved the physical. So we would get together, and it would always be a bit of a struggle. And she was a good sport because she was in for the moment. But usually when you did a scene like that, it was the entire day. I mean, we did it over and over and over again.
Did anyone ever get hurt in the fight scenes? Any of you?
Gordon got cut. Do you remember, Gordon? You got cut on your face, your nose, and your cheek on the side of a camera. Do you remember that?
I don't. Tell me.
I do.
Poor me.
John James remembers.
You stepped into the flap above the lens, and you went and slit your cheek, darling. I was there with you that day.
I don't remember.
You were very brave. You were very brave.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Could I have my OBE now, please?
When we think of Dynasty, the first image, Linda, which comes to mind really is of you, yourself on one side, Joan Collins on the other, and Blake in the middle, played by John Forsyth, sadly no longer with us. But what an incredible legacy he left us, didn't he?
Oh, my goodness. Well, just love that man. And I was so thrilled when George Peppard decided not to do Dynasty and Aaron Spelling hired John, because he was the joy for me, because we had so many scenes. Everything was so dramatic most of the time. And he always came in with a wonderful, corny joke that everyone adored and laughed at. He would do something, he'd be off camera for somebody, and he'd take my earrings off, my long diamond chandelier earrings, and put them on when the person was talking to him and trying to do their scene. And it was just lovely the way he tried to amuse us.
Yeah. So George Peppard may have been Blake at one point.
He was.
Yeah, that was my first time. I mean, I'd come from New York. I'd done some theater and some 3-camera soap opera stuff, but had never been on camera before. And I was thrilled to meet Mr. Peppard. But when we got John, and it was so wonderful. And he set the tone for the set, for the cast. He was the guy at the rudder who was steering our little boat. And he was just a marvelous guy. And he really was, in many respects, Blake Carrington. He was strong. He was just such a wonderful guy. And we're so lucky to have him as our leading man in the show. And certainly, Linda, you and John became America's couple. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Guys, I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that Hannibal from the A-Team may have been Blake Carrington.
They shot the entire pilot.
No. Wow.
Yeah. True story.
That's great. Linda, you won a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress for your role as Krystle. You beat Alexis that night. Do you have fond memories of all those kind of glamorous award shows? Did you enjoy them?
No. I think, no, that was not my fond memories. My fond memories was being on the set with everyone. I mean, as everyone's speaking, my heart is so touched with these stories that they're telling, and brings back so many memories. And the other part of it, the glitz and the glamour, was not my thing.
No.
I couldn't have cared less. No.
Right.
May I just say about Linda, and well, I don't even know if you remember this, Linda, but when I first introduced myself, I said I'm Jack Coleman, I'm the new Stephen. And you said, oh, no, don't say you're the new Stephen. Say you're the real Stephen. And it was just it was so touching. And I just thought, oh, my God, this is great. This is,
So, Linda, did you not much care for the hair and the costumes and the bling?
I love the hair and the costumes.
Right.
No, that's like every woman's dream.
Right.
To have the opportunity to wear anything that you want. They'd say, okay, go shopping. And if you're in town in Beverly Hills and you like this or that, tell them to send it over. But it was a woman's dream come true, where anything you wanted you could have and wear. And in the beginning years, we had real diamonds and jewelry, and they had a detective. They had a policeman that would be there on the set with us, follow us to the bathroom, stand outside the door to make sure they got the jewelry back, and we would take it off after each.
Yeah, I remember that. Scott's missing one very important thing that Jack Coleman still adheres to religiously with his wardrobe, and that's the shoulder pads.
I put them in my pajamas.
But the shoulder pad became very popular. I mean, at the time, everything was shoulder pads. I'm broad-shouldered anyway. So I looked like, I don't know what, maybe one of those action figures in a suit. Sometimes my shoulders were these gigantic shoulder pads in a men's suit.
I remember seeing Linda with enormous shoulders having to literally turn sideways to go through the door. Seriously, I remember that very well.
Linda, at the time, did they feel huge?
They didn't begin huge. They started small. Every year, as Gordon said, they got bigger and bigger and bigger until Joan and I looked like two football players. And the negligees, we spent a lot of time in bed.
Yeah.
Rick and I.
Yeah.
And they didn't have nightgowns that were like that. They made each one of them like they did in the 30s with Lana Turner and everyone.
Uh-huh.
I mean, some of the nightgowns were spectacular. I have some of the Dynasty clothes that I bought and kept.
Right. This has been an incredible insight, and I've had such a great time being part of this reunion. Thank you all, not just for taking part in this show, but for being such a big part of our lives growing up. This has been a dream come true today. I'm going to play this enormous 80s banger, not just because the singer had enormous hair and looked like she should have been in Dynasty, but because you are all the best. Tina Turner. Thank you, everyone. Still got one more to come. Victoria on Twitter says, it reminds me of when Krystle was kidnapped and they replaced her with a doppelganger and no one noticed. I remember being terrified someone would do that with my mum. I'm also getting a running commentary of how good this is from Zoe Bohr, who's loving the show. Hi, Zoe. Afternoon, Scott and the team, listening to your fantastic show about Dynasty, says Max. So many messages. Gaz in London says, watching Dynasty as a child, I wanted to be Blake so badly I used to drink shots of Coke in a brandy glass and just pretend to be Blake Carrington. Abby says, doing the ironing, listening to this Radio 2 Dynasty special. I've got a busy few weeks coming up. Definitely thinking I need to channel more big hair, shoulder pads and glitz into my diary.
The Dynasty Reunion on BBC Radio 2.
My next and final guest in the Dynasty Reunion needs no introduction, but I'll give it a go. Arguably the biggest and best soap star of all time. She arrived in the second series of the show and was Blake and Krystle's worst nightmare, and pretty much anyone else who stood in her way.
I'm a very direct woman. If I do not get that approval, and please understand that I have controlling interest in Denver Carrington, I shall fire you all on the spot and replace you with a board that will approve of the merger.
Style icon, award-winning actress, best-selling author, and Dynasty legend, enter Alexis. Dame Joan Collins. Hello, Dame Joan.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
It's a pleasure to talk to you too.
Alexis arrived at the end of Series 1, but we didn't actually see it was you playing the character until Series 2. Was that actually you in the final scene, or had you not been cast yet?
No, I hadn't been cast. They were having talks with Elizabeth Taylor and Sophia Loren, And by the end of the series, they still didn't know. But it was Aaron Spelling who stuck his neck out for me and said, I want Joan Collins, in spite of the suits at ABC saying they didn't.
Your on-screen rivalries and arguments are the stuff of TV legend. Many other characters were scared of you. How did people react to you in real life because of Alexis?
Well, some people were far nicer then, on the whole. Probably today, if I was playing Alexis, I would get a lot of Twitter trolls, because people do think often that that you really are like the character that you're playing. To become Alexis, I just immerse myself in the character and I become that person, which is what I did. But I'm not like that. Well, I am like that in the way that I look like her and I dress in a way like her. Some people do say things like, oh, we hate you on the show, but then they smile.
Yeah. Alexis didn't just break glass ceilings for women represented on TV. She smashed through them and then had a glass of fine champagne. Do you think Alexis was a game changer?
Absolutely. I think she was a game changer in many ways. I think the way that she controlled the boardroom, for example, that she rose to the head of her game in terms of business, that wasn't seen on television in the 1980s. It was happening. I mean, it was happening in a way in England with Margaret Thatcher, who rose to become a very, very important and powerful prime minister in this country, and was loathed by many people in her own party because of her strength and her belief in her ideals. I think that if you have strong beliefs in certain things, that there are certain people that will always hate you. And Alexis had very strong beliefs. The belief that as a woman, she could do anything and everything, except kill somebody. She never killed anybody.
No.
But Blake did.
Yeah. Your battles with Krystle, with Sable, with Dominique Devereaux, with just about anyone who dared to cross you, made such riveting television. Who did you enjoy battling with the most on screen?
Really, it was Kate O'Mara who played my sister. Sadly, she's no longer with us. And both being British, we both had a sense of humour about everything. And we were also friends before the show. But I did not enjoy the physical fights. Everybody knows that. I'm not a physical fighting person. So I used to say, Alexis fights with her tongue, not with her fists.
What were the fight scenes like to film?
Well, there were so many of them, it's difficult to say. Some of them are really messy, like the mud scene where Krystle and I tumble down a gully and end up in a mud bath covered in mud from top to toe. Mm-hmm. That wasn't very pleasant. There's another one where we are both doing fighting with a rope in between us, dressed in Elizabethan dress for some reason. And I know, and we fall into the mud. But I liked the feather fight very much.
Yes.
I loved the feather fight. Was fun. And that really was. The feathers were flying.
Yeah.
With Krystle and me.
What was your favourite storyline as Alexis?
My favourite storyline was her romance with Dex Dexter, who also, sadly, is no longer with us. And I was always begging Aaron and the other producers, please don't have Dex and Alexis break up. They're such a good couple. He adores her. Let her take him back into the fold. Let her go back to him. But they, for some reason, didn't want that, although I got a lot of letters from people saying, please, Alexis, take Dex back, take him back. And instead they made me marry some other dolt.
Yeah. Do you ever watch any episodes back?
Well, Spot, I didn't watch most of the episodes when they aired, because this was before you could tape something,
yes,
and before anything like that. So after we'd done our shows, we had a hiatus, and during which time I would go back to London or to Europe. And so I didn't see them. So during lockdown, we broke out a box set and we started to watch it. And I sat with Percy and I would say, I don't remember that outfit. I don't remember that scene. Who is that person? It was like watching a whole new show. I have to admit, though, and I will always defend Dynasty, it was a fabulous show. For the first 4 or 5 years, it was great. You had wonderfully outrageous, larger-than-life characters, all great looking. Everybody looked tremendous, beautifully dressed, with terrible, terrible problems. And I think that's what entranced people. And it was very sad when it was cancelled. They didn't want to see a lot of entitled people dressed to the nines, blowing lots of money on champagne and caviar.
Yeah. Finally, what do you think Alexis will be doing in the present day?
Oh, she would be running the world.
She'd be president.
Would be a consultant to all kinds of heads of state and heads of countries. And she would also have her own company. She probably have branched out into many things. She would probably have her own makeup and cosmetic company. She would have her own couture company. She would be a very good help to many grandchildren. Yeah, she would still be around.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Dame Joan, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for entertaining all of us in Dynasty. You are a screen legend. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Very nice to talk to you.
What a show. I can't believe all that just happened. Listen back to this over and over whenever you like on the BBC Sounds app. I would like to thank all of my guests, Dame Joan Collins, John James, Maxwell Caulfield, Heather Locklear, Ned Davis, Stephanie Beacham, Jack Coleman, Gordon Thomson, Linda Evans, and a very special thank you to Emma Sams for helping bring all of this together today. Thanks also to producers Steve Softly and Jolly California. The Dynasty Reunion with Scott Mills is a Mostest production.